What do you get when you take a division-winning team going into the final game of the season, able to have that division wrapped up, able to rest their starters by and large, going up against the second-place team in that same division with nothing on the line going into that game on the road? Well, I'll tell you what you get. 30-25 win by your Seahawks as they are able to narrowly escape out of Los Angeles, grab their 10th win on the year in a game that wasn't necessarily pretty. The Seahawks were able to get the job done, as like I said, it was really your ones against their twos. But Gino Smith came into this game needing to hit a couple of different escalators into his contract to get $6 million in bonus, and he hit those, and he played by and large pretty well in this game. 4 touchdowns. I think that's the best on the season. He was also fairly accurate across the board. The decision-making was on point. Like you've had with Gino throughout this year, there's a couple of really good high-level throws in there. Like you've had with Gino throughout this year, there's a couple of moments where it could have been an even better day. Yeah, DK Metcalf winning on a 9 route early on in this game and drops a ball, dropped right into the bucket into his hands. Tyler Lockett had a little bit of a harder catch later in this game on another deep ball down the field, but it's right there in his hands. That's a ball we've seen Tyler Lockett reel on in. Just didn't get those completions, but Gino Smith played a pretty good game here, and there were some other guys who made some really good catches in this game. Jake Bobo had a great fade ball down 4 yards out. We haven't been able to execute that kind of play throughout much over the last couple of years, but Bobo went down there on the fade route, jumped up, high pointed the ball, reeled it in. Great play there. Noah Fant might have gotten his neck snapped, might no longer have much feeling in the tips of his fingers or his toes, but he went up, he climbed the ladder, caught the ball, got himself taken out from underneath, submarined, dropped almost on his head, had to leave the game, held onto the ball, but that's what a tough guy does. So there were some guys that made some nice big catches in this game for those scores in the way. DK Metcalf himself, despite that drop, came back in this game where Gino made just an absolute fantastic play where the whole pocket is just closing around Gino Smith. And he just, as I've kind of compared it to, it's like you hit the B button in Madden and you just sort of spin through the front of the pocket. You know, you're just sort of panicking going, I'm going to get sacked. B, and it spins you forward. He climbs up to the front of the pocket off the spin move and then snaps the throw into DK, who's able to extend his route just a little bit into the back of the end zone to go get that touchdown. So a well-played game by Gino Smith. A well-played game by the receivers overall, absent a couple of those drops that did exist. The offensive line did still give up its share of quick pressures, and it was still a little bit of a head-scratcher at time, and some of those pressures were not from the grade A team of the Los Angeles Rams as far as that front four goes. Their backups were giving you some problems, which was kind of a little bit disconcerting throughout, but the running backs ran really well. 24 carries on the whole, 126 yards. You were able to keep some form of balance in this game. I think Grubb did get away from the running game about midway through this game a little bit, or you could have even been better. There were more yards to be had. Charbonnet continues to run really strongly as he's taken over for Kenneth Walker since his injuries, and a guy that many of you were intrigued to see this season. McIntosh, Kenny McIntosh is the name, and he has run so well through this back half of this year in these opportunities he's finally gotten. He had to wait almost a year and a half to get these chances, but this was a guy that if you could say you're getting a 7th round steal at the running back position, that's what a lot of us thought we were getting when you got Kenny McIntosh. He's good out of the backfield, but he's also really underrated as a runner, especially as a prospect coming out of the draft, where he did drop in that draft really mainly because of a lack of a high-end 40 time. But he showed you in this game that he's a tough runner, tough as nails, 7 carries, 49 yards, and that's only with 112 long on the day. So there's a lot of 5, 6, 7 yard runs, but good runs all the way through and always extending the run, never going down to the first tackler. Really encouraging to see McIntosh come along, as it would look like going into next year at the very least here, unless the Seahawks move one of them, that they might have one of the deepest, strongest backfields in all of football. For as good as the offense performed today, this was still a game that left you wanting, still a game that left you felt like offensively there was more meat left on that bone. And I do find myself looking back to Ryan Grubb and being a little bit unsure as to what we've got here in this first-year offensive coordinator. Some of the same issues throughout this year that have been problematic about this offense in regards to what you can connect back to him remain problematic again here in this game. It can become pre-snap penalties. It's again the lack of willingness to really buy fully into the run game. Yeah, you got 24 attempts versus 27 attempts, but if there was any game out there on the season that might have looked at one as, hey, this would be a game where you want to lean on the running game. Backups around that defensive line for the Rams, already a unit that can be a little bit susceptible to the run game with the starters out there, and yet you didn't even really try to test it. You were trying to throw right from the jump in this particular football game. A bit strange there. Odd the times you'll be in 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2s, and you keep leaning into always throwing in those situations, and oftentimes throwing in those situations far beyond the sticks. And that just doesn't really always lend well itself to, especially when you're not pass protecting particularly well in those situations. So a bit strange there. Strange that you don't always lean to the stuff that works at all times, like the pre-snap shifts, the pre-snap motions, the post-snap motions, getting defenses looking this way, hit them over here. You go from that at times to going to completely static. Too much feast or famine on this offense, where it's either 3 and outs or you've got that good hearty drive getting it right down the field, where you were thinking when you got this spread offense that there would be some more concepts in there where it was a little more consistent of moving the chains, at least giving yourself some more sustained drives within that. Just isn't what you got here today, and it's a little confusing. Take, for instance, the trick play that you brought out today, the old hook and ladder that you brought back into form as you did earlier on this season on a 3rd down and long to go get you a 1st down. What's weird about this is the Seahawks have only run 3 trick plays all season long, and all 3 of those trick plays worked. Yeah, Grubb hasn't gone to it at all other than that, which is strange because at Washington, he averaged over 1 trick play a game there, and he would not just do 1 trick play a game, but use a lot of fakes off that trick play. Like I'm saying, a lot of misdirection, a lot of hard to pinpoint what you're doing post-snap with the football, where with the Seahawks, by and large, there's a lot of ease to pinpoint what they're doing. How many times did you see the Ram defenders today, the backups today, in the running game, stepping prior to the snap, 1, 2, 3 steps, towards where the running game was going, getting those cheating steps because they're not confused about whether it's run or pass, and they're not confused about where you're running the football. It's frustrating to watch at times, and it's hard not to look back at Grubb on these issues and say, hey, this does land at your plate. There's room to grow. Having a better offensive line will help in the long term, but it's another point coming out of this game that's been a kind of commonality throughout this season in regards to Ryan Grubb and this offense. When it comes to the defense, it's hard to feel particularly good about how this group played, though there is a little bit of a built-in reason, but the Rams didn't have Stafford, they didn't have Puka Nacua, they didn't have Cooper Kupp, they had no Kyron Williams. You had some backup offensive linemen out there in this game. Even their backup running back, who I'm sure they wanted to give a lot of carries, Blake Corum, to, ended up going out of this game to an injury as well, so they were down to their 3rd string running back in this game, and yet you still let Jimmy Garoppolo cut you apart to the tune of 324 yards. Yes, you kept the Rams under 100 yards rushing and did a good job stopping him in that respect of things, but you let Jimmy Garoppolo do what he wanted to in the passing game. Some of it was also some of the screen game where it seemed like when you did want to blitz, they were able to catch you at just the right time here in this one, where McVay got a little bit of the better of Macdonald in that one, caught him just right. You're bringing the blitz. He hits you with the screen here, hit you with the screen there. They ran a lot of that type of stuff. Some of it was just Jimmy dropping back and finding your guys with a hole in the zone where you just blew a coverage outright. There is a little bit of an explanation for this because you're coming into this game with no Josh Jobe. Tariq Woolen goes out about halftime or so. Trey Brown also goes out in this game. So you're down 3 cornerbacks by and large through a big portion of this football game, and they were able to attack that. Nehemiah Pritchett really struggled, the 6th rounder out there. He did not look comfortable. There were some guys who had some really good games out there, though. Julian Love stepped up as he has throughout this season. I think he's been very solid from you for the safety position. He's played like a top 10-ish safety in this sport this year. Got himself an interception in this game. Should have had a forced fumble caused where he came up in coverage, got his hand in there at just the perfect moment to me, where the Rams player caught the ball, got 2 feet down, started to tuck the ball in. He knocked it free, looked like a fumble to me, and yet they overturned it. But Love was also good in addition in a couple other moments in this game where he came driving up from center field, up on routes, was able to dislodge the ball well, time it just perfectly, get a hand in there, make a play on the ball in addition to it. He's had a really underrated season for you from the safety position, but he played really well again here today. Leonard Williams has been absolutely money for the Seahawks throughout the whole course of this season, but he took his game up a whole nother notch about that Arizona Cardinal game at home where he almost took that game over from a defensive perspective, and he has been fired player throughout the back stretch of the season. The Chicago Bear game last week, make or break. You need that win. You don't know what's going to happen the next day in the Ram game in that contest between them and the Cardinals. He goes out there, gets you a couple sacks. He's a monster in the run game. Comes back in this game. It's not a make or break a game, but still gets you a couple sacks. Still a monster in the run game again in this one. Now 11 sacks on the year. A lot of tackles, a lot of tackle for loss, a few tip balls, a pick six interception for a touchdown. I think the Big Cat's got a strong case to be made for Defensive Player of the Year. I've seen no better season for a Seahawks defensive tackle in my lifetime, absent one season. That 1992 year by Cortez Kennedy where he won Defensive Player of the Year, that Hall of Famer, on a team that went 2-14, on a team that didn't make the playoffs. Who knows? Maybe history can repeat itself here, as he is certainly deserving, and there is not a clear-cut winner this year when you look across the board at defensive players. He's got as much a chance, I think, as anybody out there, but Leonard has been absolutely phenomenal for your Seahawks, and he's going to be a big part of what they do as they go forward. Tyrese Knight and Ernest Jones combined for 19 tackles, half sack each, as those two guys have been 1-2 as your tacklers since they've basically ascended to their spots, and that's just how you like to draw it up in this defense, as opposed to, let's say, having your safeties be high tacklers or other players. These are the guys you want locked in, getting that job done, and they are getting that job done, especially when it comes to the run game, helping to keep this Rams team down under 90 yards rushing on the football game. But those guys have been good. I think the team's going to find a way to get a deal done here with Ernest Jones. I know some people are worried about the pause in negotiations, but as he said, even in the locker room after this game, he expects a deal to get done, and so do I. It might just take a little bit of time. There wasn't a lot of other notable guys to speak of in this game. Witherspoon did have a bit of a struggle in this one. He gave up as much yardage in coverage as we've seen throughout this year. He gave up a couple of touchdown catches as well. He had to slide a little bit more to the outside with the injuries of the cornerback position, and maybe some of this game shows a little bit that he's more of a slot guy and where he's going to be most comfortable, but a little bit discouraging to see him get kind of picked on in that way. He was still very good as a tackler, still good in the running game, still coming up on the bubble screen and making plays in that respect, still playing like his hair's on fire, but there was some issues today in coverage with him giving up some completions. Jason Myers made his only field goal, a 56-yarder at that. He's made a few of those this season in what has been a fine season for him. 3 extra points made as well. Enjoy this Dr. Jekyll Jason Myers season, because Mr. Hyde, according to historical data, might just be around the corner. Michael Dixon might have had his best game of the year, and that's saying something, averaging 57 yards a punt. He also had 1 knocked inside the 20-yard line. Should have had 2, as the Hawks had about 4 defenders down inside the 1 and 2 yard line with the ball bouncing in front of them. Had a guy on the left, you had a guy on the right, you had 2 guys in the middle, and somehow the ball bounced back into the end zone. That was a tough look there, but Michael still had a great day. He's been awesome again this season. You can count on him every single year to perform at a really high level, and he does so. He is the full meal deal when it comes to a punter, and he never fails. Make no mistake about it, this first season of Coach Mike Macdonald has been a smashing success. His 10 wins is more than any first-year coach in Seahawks history, more than Chuck Knox, more than Mike Holmgren, and those were 2 coaches with a rich history of winning prior to coming to Seattle. They knew what they were doing, and yet this first-time head coach, the youngest head coach in the NFL, found this early success so fast. I think that's a very good harbinger of what is to come. And yet, many Seahawks fans look at this 2024 season a little bit like Teddy KGB from Rounders.
I feel so unsatisfied.
They see a team that got to 10 wins and should have been in the playoffs. They look at that Giants game and they go, man, we should have had that. They look at a couple of other games that were ever so close and they, man, if we just could have gotten a couple of more of those, what this could have been. And yet, you are where you are at the end of the season. Your record bears it out. You had many different chances. You had your opportunities. You fell just a little bit short. It's definitely brutal that you're going to be the first team in modern NFL history that's going to have back-to-back winning season, and neither of those 2 winning seasons did you get in the playoffs. Ouch, that one hurts. It hurts when there's 6 teams this year that win 10 games, and you're the one team that didn't make it into the playoffs. But sometimes that's the way that things break. Hopefully you just hope that it all evens out in the end. But the future is bright. Macdonald is the right coach. And though this season might be a little bit of a disappointment for some Hawk fans, I still say in the grand scheme of things, it was a great success, and this team is moving in the right direction. My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But beyond all that, don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.